Iranian state media is now claiming that combat units from Russia's Chechen Republic have declared themselves ready to deploy to Iran if the United States launches a ground invasion. According to Press TV, these forces are loyal to Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov and have told Tehran they will fight alongside the Iranian armed forces if US troops move beyond air and missile strikes onto Iranian soil. The reports describe the ongoing US-Israeli war against Iran as a religious war and say the Chechen side is framing any direct intervention as a jihad, a battle of good versus evil in defense of the Islamic Republic.
Hi, this is Rachel Israel with STEM News and Global World Report. We have breaking news that will have a huge impact on the global scene in the very near future. Let's take a look at what's going on around the world.
A short, clear question now worries many people. If the United States invaded Iran, would Russia fight for Iran? This is not a theoretical exercise. The answer has profound implications for global security and the world economy. As tensions simmer in the Middle East, the strategic calculations being made in Moscow, Washington, Tehran could reshape the international order. The world is watching to see if a regional conflict could spiral into a direct confrontation between major world powers, a scenario avoided for decades. Understanding the complex web of interests and alliances is essential. The main actors in this drama are clear: the United States, vast military power and global commitments; Iran, a regional power with deep antagonism toward Washington; Russia, a resurgent global player locked in confrontation with the West over Ukraine; Chechen units loyal to Moscow, publicly offered support to Tehran; China, a cautious economic giant with big interests in Middle Eastern stability. Each player has its own motives, constraints, and strategic goals, making the situation volatile. The conflict is already drawing in other nations in unexpected ways. Ukraine, despite its fight against Russia, has found itself assisting U.S. allies in the Gulf. One of the most striking developments has been a public declaration from a specific corner of the Russian Federation. Chechen military units have announced their readiness to deploy to Iran. They would go to support the Iranian armed forces in the event of a U.S. ground invasion. These forces are loyal to Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of Russia's Chechen Republic. His statements often reflect a more aggressive posture than that of the Kremlin. The offer is political theater signaling ideological and military alignment with Tehran from certain Russian-aligned factions. The language from the Chechen units is noteworthy. They have framed the conflict as a religious war. They called their potential intervention a jihad. They called it a battle of good versus evil. That rhetoric aims to resonate across parts of the Islamic world and reframes the fight as defense of Islam against American and allied forces. That raises the stakes and tries to build a broader coalition for Iran. It also highlights internal Russian dynamics, where leaders like Kadyrov can pursue independent foreign policy moves, but distinguish a pledge from Chechen fighters from an official Russian order. Kadyrov is an ally of Putin, yet his pronouncements don't always equal Kremlin policy. Moscow often lets such statements test the waters or send messages without committing national forces. The offer is a warning to the U.S. about foreign fighters and proxies complicating any invasion. It signals willingness to escalate, but not a direct Russian military commitment. So the announcement is a sign of solidarity and a potential source of volunteer or proxy fighters. It shows deep anti-American sentiment in parts of Russia's security apparatus. Beyond public declarations, there is clearer evidence of Russia's material support for Iran. According to officials and media reports, Moscow has been providing Tehran with significant military intelligence. This assistance is not trivial. It reportedly includes satellite imagery, real-time data on U.S. warships, real-time data on aircraft in the region. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has described this military cooperation as good, a laconic confirmation of a deepening partnership that has tangible effects on the battlefield. This level of support goes far beyond simple diplomatic backing. This intelligence sharing has practical consequences. It enables Iran to conduct more precise retaliatory strikes against American assets. U.S. officials have acknowledged that Russian satellite feeds have helped Iran monitor American movements in the Middle East. This is a classic example of gray zone warfare, where one state provides critical support without engaging in direct combat itself. For Moscow, this is a way to impose costs on the United States and push back against American power, repaying Washington for the extensive intelligence assistance the U.S. has provided to Ukraine over the past 4 years. The military relationship between Russia and Iran has solidified since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Facing heavy Western sanctions, both countries found themselves in a position of mutual need. This has led to a flurry of high-level official visits and the signing of a strategic partnership agreement. Most notably, Moscow has purchased more than $4 billion worth of weapon systems from Tehran, primarily the Shahed kamikaze drones. That have been a key feature of its war in Ukraine. This arms trade has created a strong bond and a shared industrial and military ecosystem. This cooperation makes the idea of deeper Russian involvement in an Iran conflict more plausible. Despite the growing closeness between Moscow and Tehran, there are clear limits to their alliance. In Iran's hour of greatest need, neither Russia nor China has offered forceful, kinetic, and undeniable military intervention. The support has remained largely political, economic, technical. Russia provides intelligence, some weapon systems. It has not deployed its own air force or ground troops to engage American forces directly. This hesitation is significant. It reveals that for all their anti-American rhetoric, both Moscow and Beijing are wary of being drawn into a direct, large-scale war with the United States. The primary reason for Russia's caution is the immense risk of escalation. A direct clash with U.S. forces in the Middle East could quickly spiral out of control, leading to a wider war between nuclear-armed powers. Russian strategists, like their American counterparts, wish to avoid that at all costs. Furthermore, Russia's military resources are already heavily committed to the war in Ukraine. The conflict there has been costly and protracted, demanding the full attention of the Russian military. Opening a second major front in Iran would stretch its forces dangerously thin. China's position also acts as a moderating influence. While Beijing shares Moscow's and Tehran's desire to curtail American dominance, its primary focus is on economic growth and regional stability. A major war in the Middle East would severely disrupt global oil supplies. Any decision by the United States to invade Iran would not happen in a vacuum. The U.S. military, though powerful, has finite resources and is already stretched thin by multiple global commitments. The current conflict in the Middle East, with Iranian missile attacks targeting Israel and drone attacks targeting U.S.-aligned Gulf states, has already placed a significant strain on American military assets. In particular, the demand for advanced air defense systems like the Patriot has surged. Every Patriot battery deployed to defend cities in the Gulf is one that cannot be used to protect allies in Europe or Asia. This competition for resources has become a critical factor. Reports indicate that Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar have all been using their Patriot systems to intercept Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. These engagements are incredibly expensive, often involving million-dollar interceptors to destroy drones that cost only a few $1,000s. This unsustainable economic equation drains the stockpiles of allied nations in the United States itself. The strain is felt most acutely in other theaters, especially Ukraine, where every interceptor missile used over Riyadh is one less available to defend against Russian attacks on its cities and infrastructure. To mitigate this strain, the United States has turned to its partners for help. In a fascinating twist, Ukraine has become a provider of security assistance in the Middle East. At the request of U.S. officials, Approximately 200 Ukrainian specialists have been deployed to help coordinate air defenses in Qatar. Beyond the military chessboard, the conflict is being fought on an economic front with global repercussions. Iran's strategic location gives it a powerful economic weapon, the ability to threaten maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway is a critical choke point for the global energy supply. A significant portion of the world's oil passes through it daily. Any closure of the strait or sustained attacks on shipping would cause oil prices to surge dramatically. This volatility directly benefits oil exporting nations. One of the biggest beneficiaries is Russia. For the Kremlin, higher oil prices are a strategic boon. Surging revenues from oil sales help insulate Russia from sanctions. Revenues from gas sales help fund the war in Ukraine. This dynamic undermines Western policy objectives, making the war prohibitively costly for Moscow. As Zelensky has noted, Russia draws direct economic benefits from Middle East instability. The conflict creates a favorable market for Russian energy exports, strengthening Moscow's capacity without firing a shot in Iran. The conflict also creates complex dilemmas for U.S. sanctions policy. To stabilize global markets and prevent prices skyrocketing, Washington has considered easing restrictions on oil, including from Russia. This highlights difficult trade-offs for policymakers. Actions to mitigate domestic economic damage can provide a lifeline to an adversary. Russia exploits these economic ripple effects, using Middle East chaos to its advantage against the West. So, would Russia join the fight if the U.S. invaded Iran? The evidence suggests Russia is a dedicated and valuable partner to Iran, but its support has clear and calculated limits. Military intelligence weapons. It has also benefited economically from regional instability. Factions within the Russian sphere, like Chechen units, have publicly pledged to fight alongside Iran. This demonstrates alignment and a willingness to raise the costs for any American military action. This support is real, and it makes any potential conflict far more dangerous for the United States. However, there is a vast difference between this indirect support and a full-scale military intervention with Russian ground troops fighting American soldiers. The risks of such a direct confrontation are immense, including the potential for catastrophic escalation to a wider war between nuclear powers. With its military already heavily invested in the grinding war in Ukraine, Russia lacks the capacity and likely the political will to open a second major front. The Kremlin's actions are driven by pragmatic self-interest. Weakening the U.S. from the sidelines is a low-risk, high-reward strategy. Direct war is not. The most likely scenario is continuation and potential intensification of Russia's current strategy. Advanced weapons, real-time intelligence, diplomatic cover at the United Nations, economic support. It might also include proxy forces, Chechen fighters, other volunteers. This approach lets Russia challenge the United States, support its partner, and advance its interests without crossing into direct war. It keeps pressure on Washington while keeping Russian casualties and costs to a minimum. Ultimately, the situation remains fluid and uncertain. A major miscalculation or dramatic strategic shift could alter Moscow's calculations. But based on current evidence, a full-scale Russian intervention on the ground in Iran appears unlikely. Russia's partnership with Iran is strategic, not a blank check.
Can I actually figure out if Russia will fight alongside Iran if the U.S. invades? The tensions between Iran and the U.S. have been simmering for years, with a complex history of conflict and diplomacy. Russia, on the other hand, has significant strategic interests in the region, from energy resources to naval bases. Their historical ties with Iran add another layer to this volatile mix. The web of alliances and rivalries in this region is incredibly complex. Russia and Iran have a strategic partnership that includes military cooperation and economic ties. If the US were to invade Iran, Russia might see this as a direct threat to its own interests. Their response would depend on the specifics of the situation, but it's clear that Russia wouldn't sit idly by. Russia's military capabilities are a significant factor in this scenario. They have a strong presence in the region, with access to key ports and naval bases. Their military doctrine emphasizes the protection of their strategic interests abroad. This could lead to a confrontation with the US if Russia feels its interests are under threat. The potential consequences of Russian intervention would be severe. A conflict between Russia and the US would have far-reaching implications for global security. It could draw in other nations, leading to a wider conflict. The humanitarian costs would be catastrophic, with the potential for significant loss of life and displacement. A direct threat to Russia's naval bases or energy interests could be a trigger event that forces their hand. If the US were to target Russian facilities or personnel in the region, Russia might feel compelled to respond militarily. This could lead to a rapid escalation of the conflict. The unpredictable nature of international relations makes it difficult to predict with certainty how Russia would respond. However, one thing is clear: the consequences of such a conflict would be devastating. The international community would be watching closely, hoping to avoid a wider conflict. So, what do you think? Would Russia actually fight alongside Iran if the US invades? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more geopolitical analyses and insights into the complex world of international relations.
Well, that's the news for tonight. Thank you so much for continually supporting our content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they would find it interesting as well. We're very excited to continue this journey with you. We thank you all for bringing certain stories to our attention, and for continually keeping us updated with certain events around the world.
Coloring Book for Kids, Volume 2. Available August 15, 2025 on Amazon. The Bible Lions Coloring Book for Children. Color 30 fun designs of inspirational verses and Christian artwork. A beautiful children's coloring book designed to fill your child's mind with the positive words of God's love. The Bible Lions Coloring Book for Kids was designed to be a fun, yet effective way to help children calm their tension. Hand-lettered quotes and adorable hand-designed illustrations will inspire your child as they reflect on God's promises.